What is good, Tesla family? It's Ray J back with another video. And this one I want to break down what's going on with Tesla, SPY, Nvidia, the QQQ, and a couple of other tickers. I'm going to break down what's going on with the overall market thus far and how things are looking, what you should be watching for going into tomorrow. But before I break anything down, all this information, before I get into any more details, let me just mention a couple of things. Firstly, I am not a financial planner, so take nothing I say as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out the Moomoo link, which is down below and in the description. If you sign up for Moomoo, deposit $100 into the account, you are guaranteed up to 5 free stocks. If you deposit $1,000, you're guaranteed up to 15 free stocks, and the offer ends very soon. Anyways, now let's break down what's going on with Tesla. So in my previous video, I mentioned to everyone that the market's going to likely get a bounce. And I was hoping Tesla would get a bounce as well. I was very right on the large majority of the stocks out there. SPY got a very, very nice bounce today, up almost 1%. The QQQ bounced very, very nicely as predicted. Apple ran almost 3.3%. Very, very nice push to the upside, looking bullish right now as predicted. QQQ looks strong. Nvidia got a nice push up 2% as predicted. Microsoft was green. AMD, Meta, Amazon, these things ran as I predicted. So I was right about the large majority of stocks out there. And when it came to Tesla, I was only half right about it and also a little bit more wrong. So what happened to Tesla was we did get a pump. So my indicator showed a pump was coming. We did pump during the pre-markets. Tesla actually hits 220 a share. And we ended up gapping up when we opened around 218. So Tesla did push up as we were anticipating. It did end up happening temporarily. However, the move ended up not lasting. Tesla ended up failing to run and continuing to hold up, and Tesla ended up just tanking throughout the day as we got lots of negative headlines. This would be quite ironic from a technical standpoint, considering the fact that the SPY was pumping, the QQQ was pumping, Nvidia was pumping, Apple, all of these things were running very hard alongside Google, Microsoft. They were all pumping and holding up very nicely. Tesla was the one that ended up just underperforming big time. And a lot of that had to do with lots of these negative headlines, not to mention the fact that there was a lot of bad news coming out for the week that is still affecting Tesla and causing it to underperform. Tesla's lacking the ability to really, really get bought up and hold up like the market, at least for now. So we're going to be watching some key levels and very important supports going into tomorrow and beyond. But let's first talk about the market. What on earth are we going to be watching for? Tomorrow is going to be Friday. At 10 o'clock a.m., we have the main pieces of data. That's Eastern Standard Time, 30 minutes after market open. We have the Michigan Consumer Sentiment Report about how sentiment's looking across the U.S. for the month of January. We're going to be looking at new home sales, the 5-year inflationary expectations report, and also the current conditions report. That's going to be very important. This data may cause some volatility at 10 o'clock a.m., so watch for volatility 30 minutes after market open. That's the main piece of data that's going to be coming out. Besides that, we have Barr from the Fed giving a speech at 1 p.m. We also have Daly from the Fed giving a speech at 4:15 p.m. Everything else is very, very minor. So we'll be watching for volatility at 10 o'clock a.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'll give you guys a reminder again tomorrow. Besides that, as far as earnings go, I just want to call out that earnings were very mixed thus far. We should be having Tesla's earnings next week. I will be talking more about that later on. But TSM did better than expected with strong guidance. Texas Capital Bank was lower than expected with weak guidance. Overall, the earnings were very mixed. We have more earnings for tomorrow. We have Fifth Third Bank, more banks, Ally Bank, and just a few others. So watch those very carefully. As far as SPY goes, we have about 2 million calls expiring tomorrow, and we have just over 3.4 million puts expiring, with the large majority of puts basically expiring tomorrow with a 1.71 puts to call ratio. This basically tells us that the market makers could be incentivized to try to hold the market up, hold it very close to where we are, which gives the bulls a bigger edge because they like to cause more pain amongst the bigger positions. On top of this, you can't forget that the fear and greed index is more greedy than before. We're seeing greed returning. We're seeing extreme greed making up market momentum, and the put and call positioning has shifted a little bit back to greed. We're starting to see some puts being closed because the market is beginning to understand that the market is holding up, and we're seeing some shorts getting squeezed. Also, market volatility is back to neutral as we're seeing the VIX underperforming as I predicted yesterday. That is once again holding up nicely. Some news came out for Tesla. This is some decent news. Tesla could be launching a new adaptive headlights for the Highland Model 3, which are designed to basically be adjusted to help out other drivers to adapt and kind of like limit the glare that could be coming if they end up shooting other people's eyes. So that's once again very, very good. This is an update that's coming out, so we'll see how that ends up looking. There's also some news that came out that's kind of negative. There's this headline saying that the 2022 to 2023 Model 3 and Model Ys are recalled due to steering defects, but it's not all of them, it's just about 4,000 of them. Now, is this truly a recall? According to this article, it seems that a software updates what's going to be used. A software issue is what the issue is, so it's just a software update that will fix this. But when the headlines are saying things like there's a recall for Tesla again, the Model 3 and the Model Y, this and that, without specifying details in the headlines, this is very negative for Tesla, and this news worked against it, unfortunately. There's also news that came out from other, investors.com and other sources like that about what's going on with Tesla. They're mentioning things about how Tesla is kind of like not having the best profits and margins. They're also mentioning that Tesla may not have the strongest of earnings, especially in Q4. They started to say a lot of things just like that, which is not the best of news for it. They also mentioned that. Although despite this, Tesla still has a good long-term potential, but with this coming out, this is just not great news for Tesla. So we saw some bad news about that. There's also some more news that came out that Teslas crash more than gas powered cars. This is making the headlines on CNN. And they're also bringing up how Hertz is announcing it's selling 20,000 EVs. And they're basically talking about how there's claims out there that Teslas tend to get into more accidents. Teslas are this and that. Lots of negative things, excuse me, about it. I do want to note that Teslas are going to get into a lot of accidents because of the fact that if drivers are using FSD, it's not perfect. It's not perfect right now. It also could be because of other factors out there. It's not just solely because of the fact that Teslas are unsafe. Teslas are actually reportedly one of the safest cars out there, but these articles like to just criticize Tesla in many unnecessary ways and find very biased surveys to use against Tesla. Now, do Teslas get into accidents? They can, because a lot of people could be using FSD, right? FSD or driver assist functions are not always perfect. I think that those sometimes could cause either accidents, they could lead to some mistakes here and there sometimes, and that's not always its faults. It's just trying to improve the software. It could also be because of like the different drivers who are in control of the Tesla. I wouldn't necessarily just blame the car for everything. The drivers could also be making mistakes. There could be some faults here and there. Maybe there's some steering issues. Maybe sometimes that could play a role too. I've heard some articles saying that, but there's so many different factors out there, and I don't want to just solely say it's all Tesla's fault. It's all because Teslas are bad, unsafe cars, kind of like what this article is insinuating. I don't think that Teslas are unsafe. I think that they're some of the safest cars, but it's going to depend on how they're being driven, who is driving them, and also whether or not FSD is being used, because FSD is still improving, but I don't fully trust that's 100% capable of being perfect. There's still going to be mistakes that happen, especially if you have like millions of people driving Teslas and they're, a large percentage of them are using FSD or like assists. So it's very important to note that we shouldn't just attack Tesla solely for what we're seeing on paper. You can't forget about the specific details about every single case and every single accident. All right. So, with that being said, a lot of these articles are just very negative. There's also this article saying that Tesla sales have plunged across Europe. They're basically saying that Porsche sales dropped 40%, while Tesla's dropped 30% amid slowing demand. However, it doesn't specify about where these numbers came out from because Tesla had relatively strong numbers, I would say. I wouldn't necessarily say that their European numbers were the worst ever. They still had strong numbers and they're still going to continue to grow, but with demand slowing down, it's still affecting Tesla's overall numbers. So I would say that for the long term, I'm still very bullish. I think Tesla is just going to continue to grow in Europe, but European sale rates are, as a whole, are what are basically changing in countries like the EU and the UK. And we're going to be watching to see if this changes. Macroeconomic factors are playing a big role in causing this. We can't just attack Tesla for it, but it's just another negative headline that's still going after Tesla. At 108 million in volume, not to mention the fact that Wedbush is still saying Tesla will outperform, but right now it's underperforming looking at the price per ratio. Fridays tend to be green only about 49% of the time, and that's pretty much it for now. Watch for volatility around noon and then 2 and 3 p.m. So now let's talk about Tesla. Tesla basically has resistance around 212. If we try to break above 212, we're going to be watching this 213.5 area. If we break above 213.5, we could see Tesla try to fill this imbalance at 216. If we fail to break this 212 and then 213.5 zone, Tesla could reject and come back down towards 210. If we fail at 210, we have this 208 zone that's going to be very critical for Tesla. We hold this low. If we lose the low we made here, there's a risk of it coming all the way down to 205 over the next few trading days. There's going to be a big risk of it dropping more if we lose this low right here. If we lose 205, that's it for Tesla. There's 202, then 200 coming. So you want to be very careful in looking at these levels. What do I think Tesla will do? Well, I just want to call out that there's just so much bad news coming out. And it's very unfortunate, right? I mentioned in my video a bounce is coming for the markets. I even thought Tesla would try to hold up. And I think I would have been correct if it wasn't for all these bad headlines. SPY bounced nicely and pumped. QQQ pumped. Nvidia pumped. Apple exploded and pumped to the moon. But Tesla was the one that was lagging behind, closing in the red because of all these negative headlines, all these headlines about how Tesla's getting into accidents, it has a recall, it has this and that. It's just continuing to hurt Tesla. And all the news that came out this week as well, with the Hertz news and such, it's all just continuing to affect Tesla. It's very unfortunate. So I want to be very careful with it. The trend is looking bearish. We're making lower highs and lower lows still. So it looks bearish overall. Going into tomorrow, we'll be watching to see if this thing pops with the market as we open. I think the most likely possibility is we kind of range trade for a bit, just like how we kind of range traded here. It might try to pop above 212, trade sideways here, then break down, continue to trade sideways between 210 and 212, and we might just remain in the range we saw from today. But if we lose the low here, there's a risk of it coming all the way down to 205. The trend is looking bearish overall, but I think we might see a very sideways day since it's a Friday. So we'll be watching this very carefully. Don't forget to turn bullish. You want to see it get above 213.5. Excuse me, sorry guys, 213.5 and then push up to this imbalance. We'll be watching if that ends up being the case. So watch your levels very closely. As far as SPY goes, this is actually different from Tesla. Although Tesla's looking very weak, SPY is looking stronger than Tesla. The 4-hour in particular is looking very strong. So is the daily time frame. The 4-hour got a bullish cross on the PPO on the MACD, and we have a bullish looking candlestick. Not to mention the daily has a bullish looking candlestick as well. So I think that we have a nice cup and inverse head and shoulders like structure. Basically, if you push higher, watch 477 is minor resistance. We have tough resistance between 477.5 to 478, around the 478s basically. We rejected 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, like 6 times around 478. So it's going to be very tough. If we break the 478s, our next target is 480, then 482. For support, make sure you watch 476. If we lose that, 475 is our next target. And if we lose 475, we might sink all the way down to 473.5. What do I think SPY is going to do? So I went over the supports, I went over the resistance. What do I think is going to happen? I think that we might kind of gap down tomorrow. We're going to start a little weak, then start pushing back up. I think we're going to be fighting for 477 to 478 and kind of chop around there. I'm not sure if we're going to break 478s to push for 480 or not. That depends on how we end up reacting to all this data with the Michigan Consumer Sentiment Report. But there's a very good chance SPY will attempt to go higher, and I think that it still looks bullish overall. Part of why I'm saying that is because of Apple. Apple's going to help the market push up higher, in my opinion, and here's exactly why. When looking at Apple stock, I just want to mention that Apple is still holding up and pushing very nicely. When we look at Weeble right here, let me just call out something important. On the daily time frame, Apple has kind of like a W like formation. We got the double bottom and a push. We have this unfilled gap way up here on the daily. We have a gap to fill at 192. So I think that Apple's going to try to fill that gap. Apple might retrace a little bit towards 187, then bounce and then eventually push up to 189. If we break 189, watch for 190. If we get above 190, we're going to push up to 192. For support, make sure you watch 186.5. If we lose this, there's 185. If that fails us, we're going to start sinking down to the 183s. In my opinion, Apple may retrace this just a bit and start pushing up higher. And I think it's going to eventually test 190 and try to break out even above that later on. So it looks bullish to me in terms of its setup. When it comes to other stocks out there, such as Nvda, overall, I would say Nvidia is also looking quite bullish. I think I'm having a slight Wi-Fi issue. Let me just close a lot of these tabs. Give me 1 second, guys. I do apologize about this. But I just want to mention that it's not the end of the world when we start to see all this fear coming out about Tesla and such. It's not the end of the world, guys. Don't let it get the best of you. If anything, I like to remain as unbiased as possible and make my analysis. But unfortunately, sometimes things get in the way for Tesla and other tickers out there. But anyways, going back to Nvidia, let me just zoom in just to show you these very tight levels we have. Nvidia, all the way up here, has been just continuing to push and push and push, and it looks very strong in my opinion. So we have support right now around 572. If we lose that, there's 570. Then we have 568. If we lose 568, basically, it's going to come down to 565. And if we lose that, 560 is coming next. Resistance watch 575. If we break that, there's going to be a push for 580 to 582. What do I think Nvidia is going to do? I think that it might retrace a little bit in the morning, just like how it did today, then push up higher. I think it's going to be trying to get very close to 580, continuing to hold up and squeeze those shorts. So I lean more in that direction. I think Nvidia is going to hold up. I think it's still looking quite good. As far as the QQQ goes, I think that the QQQ is looking bullish. We have support at 412. If we lose that, there's 410 coming. And if we lose 410, we could return and turn actually a little bearish back down to 408. For bullish, you want to see it break above 414, which I think it's going to easily do and hit 415. Then we have 416.5 above that. I think that, in my opinion, the QQQ looks bullish. It's just continuing to uptrend. I think it's going to easily reach at least 415. With that being said, I went over the majority of the tickers. Tesla's looking relatively weak, but the other tickers from Nvda to Apple, SPY, the QQQ are looking very strong. The VIX has a head and shoulders like formation. We also have this gap to fill down here and another gap down here. If the VIX loses 14, watch 13.5. If we lose this on the VIX, it's going to start sinking even lower in this head and shoulders like distribution pattern. So if this starts sinking, it's going to become basically bearish for the VIX, and that's going to be bullish for the markets. The market pumping may cause the VIX to drop as implied volatility sinks. There's a very good chance that that could happen. I'm going to basically conclude the video at this part by talking about just a few more tickers very quickly. For IWM, this thing may actually pop a little bit towards 192, then come back down and trade sideways and close somewhat in the green. I still think it's showing some potential. For Microsoft, I think that this thing is going to test 394 again. If we break this, watch 395. Getting above 395 opens the pathway to 400. It might try to push all the way up there. Watch 388 as critical support if we lose 390, and if that fails us, there's 384. My guts tells me it's going to approach 394 to 395, and then eventually 400 if that breaks. For AMD, this thing is looking like it might retrace a little bit. We could actually backtest 158 to 159 and then bounce off that and then end up closing very flat. So I could see this retracing a bit before it tries to bounce. Coinbase looks kind of weak. We've been selling off on the daily after bad news came out, so watch for 118 on Coinbase and a bounce after that. I could see it sinking a bit. For Google, we look bullish right now. I called out Google hitting 145 yesterday. That's what we basically did today. I think 146.66 is coming. It's going to try to test this high. If that breaks, 147.5 is next. For Amazon, the daily looks kind of bullish. We're going to be looking at this wick. 155 is going to be our target. I think Amazon may try to push towards that. Then it might just chop around. And for Meta, I think 377 is coming. If we break that, we're going to be approaching 380. So watch that very, very carefully. So that being said, guys, thank you all so much for listening. Please remain calm, cool, and collected. Do what you have to do, and I'll see you guys very soon on the next video. Thank you for listening. Have a great day, and peace